I stood in my kitchen, sipping my morning coffee, when I heard the unmistakable sound of a master key turning in the lock. The door clicked open, and before I could react, I saw Charlotte Williams step into my home, her clipboard in hand and that overly confident, self-righteous look plastered on her face. She barely acknowledged me, stepping past the threshold like she owned the place. "Good morning, Mr. Turner." Charlotte's voice oozed with authority, as if she were delivering a judgment. "I'm Charlotte Williams, HOA president. I'm here to perform an emergency compliance inspection under Article 7 of the Community Charter." She had no idea who she was dealing with. I set my coffee mug down slowly, my fingers tightening around the handle as I sized up the situation. This woman had been harassing me and my elderly mother for weeks. Now, she had the audacity to enter my home without permission, armed with that bogus emergency compliance document, thinking she could just waltz in and violate our privacy. I had no idea what she expected to find, but one thing was clear: this wasn't just a power trip. Charlotte's behavior was a symptom of something much deeper. "Ma'am," I said, my voice steady but firm, "you don't have permission to be here. Leave my house immediately." Charlotte froze mid-step, looking like she had just been hit with a brick. Her expression shifted from one of authority to confusion, as if she hadn't considered that anyone would dare defy her. "I'm conducting a legal inspection," she began, as if that explained everything. "Your house is in violation of multiple HOA rules." I didn't care about her list of imaginary violations. The truth was, Charlotte was obsessed with power. Over the past 2 weeks, she'd harassed my mother and me over every insignificant detail of our property, from the color of the garage door to the placement of flower pots. She thought she could intimidate us into submission because she held the keys to the community's properties, but she had no idea who she was messing with. I may not have been actively patrolling right now, but I was still a sheriff, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. I had spent 15 years serving the public, learning to recognize when people abused their authority. And Charlotte, with her faux official demeanor, was about to learn a very hard lesson. "Leave, now," I repeated, my voice firm yet calm. Instead of backing off, Charlotte persisted, clutching that clipboard like it was a shield. She began taking pictures of everything in the room: the family photos on the mantel, the throw pillows on the couch, even the prescription bottles on the kitchen counter. She wasn't taking pictures for a legitimate inspection. She was documenting violations that didn't exist. "That's enough," I said, my patience running thin. "You're crossing a line, Charlotte. You don't have the right to invade my privacy." Charlotte didn't listen. Instead, she pulled out a paper, an emergency safety alert, she called it, showing me an official-looking document that seemed to give her the right to enter any property in the community, as long as it was considered an emergency. I knew better than to fall for it. This was just another manipulation tactic, one that let her pretend she had legal grounds for her actions. I couldn't believe it. She was using her power to invade people's homes, photographing private spaces and making up violations as she went along. But what she didn't know was that I had been documenting everything for weeks. "Please leave my house, Charlotte," I said one last time, my voice firm yet calm. Instead of complying, she reached for the bedroom door handle as though she had every right to enter. That's when something inside me snapped. "Ma'am, stop right there," I said, stepping in front of her. For a moment, she hesitated, her fingers just inches away from the doorknob. It was clear she wasn't used to being challenged, and it was that moment when I revealed the truth. "I'm Sheriff Caroline Turner," I said, pulling my badge from my pocket, "and you're under arrest for unlawful entry and harassment." Charlotte blinked, her face going pale as she processed the words. She stammered, "But you're just a—" Her voice faltered as the weight of the situation hit her. I wasn't just any ordinary resident of this neighborhood. I was a law enforcement officer, and I had been documenting her every move. Every time she stepped onto my property without permission, every time she made false claims, it was all recorded. And now I was going to make her face the consequences. "You're under arrest," I repeated, pulling out my radio. "This is a citizen's arrest. I need backup at 1543 Maple Drive. I have a suspect in custody for unlawful entry, harassment, and elder abuse." Charlotte's expression twisted into disbelief. "You can't do this," she shouted. "I'm the HOA president. I have the right to inspect." "I don't care about your position," I interrupted. You don't have the right to invade someone's home, especially not when you're targeting an elderly woman with medical conditions. It was clear she hadn't expected me to be who I was. Her whole demeanor changed, from the confident, power-hungry HOA president to a woman scrambling to justify her actions. "You've been harassing us for weeks," I continued, "and now you've crossed the line. You've violated my mother's privacy, and you've caused her stress that led to a medical emergency." Charlotte's face drained of color as she began to panic. She reached for the emergency safety authorization paper, trying to wave it in front of me as if it could somehow save her. But it was too late. I had already collected enough evidence to make sure she faced the consequences for her actions. It wasn't long before Officer Miller arrived on the scene, a calm, professional presence that only further exposed Charlotte's desperation. As Miller read her Miranda rights, I watched Charlotte's bravado crumble. "You can't do this," she repeated, her voice growing shrill. "You don't know who I am." "Oh, I know exactly who you are," I said, my voice cold. "You're the person who thought she could use her position to hurt others. You're the person who thought she was above the law." Miller took the lead in processing Charlotte, and as he handcuffed her, the neighbors who had gathered began to murmur amongst themselves. It was clear they had been watching the entire ordeal unfold, and I could see the shift in their attitudes. They had been manipulated by Charlotte for so long, but now, with her being arrested, they were beginning to see the truth. As Charlotte was escorted to the police car, she turned to me one last time, her voice bitter. "This isn't over, Turner. People need to know what kind of cop you really are." I didn't flinch. "This is over for you," I said calmly. "But for me, this is just the beginning." The charges against Charlotte piled up quickly. Unlawful entry, harassment, elder abuse, fraud. The community soon learned that Charlotte's behavior wasn't just overzealous enforcement. It was calculated manipulation meant to intimidate, control, and ultimately drive vulnerable families out of their homes. As for me, I had my mother to take care of, and after the case was closed, I made sure no one would ever treat my family like that again. The neighborhood began to heal, and while Charlotte sat in a holding cell awaiting trial, the community learned a valuable lesson. Never let anyone think they're above the law, especially not someone hiding behind a clipboard and a fake sense of authority. If you like this story, hit that like button, share your thoughts below, and subscribe for more HOA tales and real-life neighborhood drama each week.